$12 million to not talk about this relationship that you posted on Instagram that was so beautiful and you had so much love for me. What the are you hiding, dude? What are you scared of?
So, of course, that was Brianna Chickenfry LaPaglia. Now, when it comes to the end of the episode, for every episode I've been putting out, usually I get into beef, whether it's video game beef, whether it's hip hop beef. But of course, for today, we are focusing specifically on country beef. And not only that, I also wanted to talk about some of the music that came because of this coming about, as far as the reveal that Brianna had on her podcast, the BFFs Podcast. So the main thing is that Dr. Umar will not be the happiest to find out how I figured out this information, or how this information was even brought to my attention, right? But that's besides the point, because actual music dropped along with this whole debacle. So the track titled Smallest Man by Dave Portnoy is a quote-unquote, well, not even quote-unquote, it's definitely a Zach Bryan diss track, to the point where they have claimed that Zach's team has been pulling the song from every single platform, which is why if you go to type in Smallest Man by Dave Portnoy, you will only see other channels posting this track. So it's very interesting how this is coming about. But obviously, as you heard Brianna say, it's $12 million on the table as far as her keeping quiet. Now, I don't know about y'all, but majority of humans on this planet would have taken that deal, which lends me to believe that the overall evidence that she had against Zach Bryan caused for that amount of investment into her being quiet. Reminds me of, and I'm not accusing Zach Bryan of this, but it reminds me of the P. Diddy Cassie situation, where Cassie came out and essentially put out a lawsuit, but even before that was asking Diddy's team behind the scenes for a certain amount for her not to come forth with certain claims and accusations. But lo and behold, Diddy did not care what Cassie had to say, so now here we are. So with this situation between Brianna and Zach, I think there's a lot of similarities. And of course, with the actual $12 million amount being offered from Zach Bryan's team for Brianna to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which she ultimately rejected, I think that is cause for deep diving into what she has to say. So obviously, there's a whole podcast you can listen to right now, and, you know, doing my journalistic due diligence, right? I listened to the entire podcast, and let me tell you, I'm not going to say she didn't really dive into the details, but whatever the $12 million was trying to keep quiet, I don't think it was said in that podcast, because of course she said a lot of things about mental abuse that she went through, and of course physical abuse. But as far as the specific sentiments that $12 million would keep quiet, I don't think she revealed that on the podcast. I felt like she was holding it close to the chest. And the reason why I say that is because, of course, when Cassie first came out, as far as the accusations and detailed certain things was very vague, a lot of people was like, oh, we don't care, right? And then the 2016 video of Cassie getting assaulted by P. Diddy came out. And then guess what? Now, currently, P. Diddy is incarcerated and Cassie's the main witness. So whenever millions of dollars is put up for somebody to be quiet via a non-disclosure agreement, there's something deeper beneath the surface that has to be revealed. Otherwise, they will never even offer that amount of money. So I'm still waiting for that. Now, of course, abuse is very serious as far as in relationships, but as far as the specific details, when I was listening to the podcast, I think the closest we even got to an actual instance, because it was other instances where she talked about Zach Bryan commenting on what she wore to like award shows, and I'm like, that's not what he was probably trying to keep quiet. And then there was another thing where it was like a campfire and he just went off on her friends. I'm like, that even is probably not what the 12 million was trying to keep quiet. The reason why I keep harping on the $12 million, because do y'all know how much $12 million is to get over the span of 3 years? And if you don't know, let's just listen to Brianna talk about it for herself, as she even said why she didn't end up taking the 12 million right here.
Pretty much after all set, like everything was done, I was approached by his team and
Oh, first off, Well, I should have said this at the beginning. But anyways, if you want to see the video along with the audio, Analytic Dreamz video on Spotify to see the video along with the audio.
I was offered a lot of money, like a big lump sum of money.
This was before the 12 million was actually established in the podcast.
Basically, I would have gotten the money over the course of 3 years. I would have had to sign all of my experiences, everything that I am, away to this person. They would have been monitoring everything that I do. And at the end of the 3 years, I'll receive like that big lump sum of money, like throughout the years. I thought about it for a second, and I think they tend to forget, I started to forget, that I was someone, I was established, I was successful before him. I'm gonna be someone, I'm gonna be established, I'm gonna be successful after him. Maybe I'm not gonna be selling out stadiums and fucking making hundreds of millions of dollars. That is like, I'm all right where I'm at, and I don't want blood money, and I don't think you can pay people off that you hurt for them to protect you.
All right, so we're going to pause it right there. So, of course, she goes on to talk about other things in this hour and 23-minute long podcast. I'm going to come back to that in a second because I also want to pinpoint something else. But one of the bigger elements of this entire situation is that Zach Bryan seems to not be liked by a lot of people. Apparently he has beef with Taylor Swift. I didn't know this. Apparently he has beef with Post Malone. Now, of course, I've covered Zach Bryan extensively on the podcast because I cover the people who have, you know, pun intended, a mass effect on the music industry. So that whenever I get into Zach Bryan, he's had a plethora of tracks that have charted. And currently, like as of today, he has 3 albums that's in the top 30 as far as most played albums in the world. He has The Greatest American Bar Scene. That's the 22nd most played album in the world. The self-titled Zach Bryan album. That's the 24th most played album in the world. And then you have then you have American Heartbreak, which is the 28th most played album in the world. And then of course, when you come to tracks, when you come over to his singular tracks that's currently charting, Pink Skies is the 48th most played song in the world. Been on the charts for about 23 weeks. That is a bona fide hit, right? Then you have the track 28 that's been on the charts for about 17 weeks, and it's the 75th most played track in the world. So not saying that this disregards what he did to Brianna. I'm just putting it in place, the type of tactics that is used by people who have the resources to silence you, right? So for Brianna not to take the 12 million offered by Zach Bryan's team is beyond honorable. I mean, she's a better man than most. Well, better woman than most. So in that instance, I had to listen to the podcast because I was like, I have to know what he was trying to hide. And of course, she kind of hinted towards it, but I don't know if she's coming out with a book. I don't know if she's coming out with a video, like a documentary style type video, because if you don't know, the Zach Bryan and Brianna relationship started back in July 2023, 2 months after they met at the Academy of Country Music Awards. And the split, of course, came just last month of this year. So not the longest relationship, but obviously throughout that time span, something happened. And I believe that we should get the details if they want to continue with the whole anti-Zach Bryan wave. Because obviously, as a music connoisseur, I'm going to pay more attention to actual details into what people say about their side of the relationship. We've heard Zach Bryan response, not directly. I mean, he basically posts a lot of cryptic messages on his Instagram. And even after the podcast aired, he put out a track titled High Road that, lo and behold, went number 10 on the daily US Spotify chart and had 1.2 million streams as far as up to November 8th. So this was Zach Bryan's 19th song to reach the US top 10 on Spotify. The reason why I'm reading off all of these stats for Zach Bryan is because the Cassie playbook has to be replicated if you want people to care about what Zach Bryan did to you. Because obviously, when I talked about the Cassie versus Diddy situation, I just plainly came out and said that people don't have compassion for certain abuse until they see it. Y'all remember when Ray Rice hit his girlfriend or whatever, and the perception of Ray Rice before that video came out and the perception of Ray Rice after that video came out. I'm not saying that, actually I am saying Brianna will have to release something for Zach Bryan fans to care about what he did to her. Now, of course, what he did to her was wrong, but as far as giving the ultimate overview of what she's going against, I just think that's the best route to take. Copy, replicate, and completely mimic what Cassie did in Attack of Diddy, right? And if she's not willing to go that extra mile, then Zach Bryan fans won't care. But of course, the reason why I'm reporting on it is, well, one, like I said at the beginning of the segment, of course, Dr. Umar would not be the happiest to know how this was brought to my table, right? But ultimately, shining a light on these type of things is something I've done numerous times on the podcast. So this is no different. Relationships and abuse is wrong. I like to come at it with a certain marketing strategy to let you know that the person you're going up against will try everything and use everything in their power to silence you. I mean, to the point where literally her co-stars on the podcast, I forget their name, I think I said, yeah, Dave Portnoy and Josh Richards, when they released the diss track, they basically said that Zach Bryan's team, well, they said Warner, copyrighted every single platform that track was on, which is why I haven't even showed the track. If you notice, I haven't showed this track at all. I'm not trying to get in trouble with Warner, right? But you can look it up for yourself by typing in The Smallest Man by Dave Portnoy, a Zach Bryan diss, and it should pop up. And basically that's what I'm gonna title the segment. So in all intents and purposes, I'm shining a light on the abuse that Zach Bryan had towards Brianna, but I'm also giving her advice as far as how to go about it, because of me being in the hip hop space and seeing how somebody who doesn't have nearly the amount of resources as a person that they're going against ended up winning, right? So that's why I say she should try to take a play out of Cassie's playbook, because obviously $12 million on the table, $30 million was paid out to Cassie, and Lord only knows the amount of monster Diddy has been for 30 plus years. If 12 million is on the table for you, there's definitely something you can showcase. And I don't know if she's willing to go that extra step, or if she's just satisfied with just letting the people know that he does this time and time again to his previous girlfriends as far as making them sign NDAs. So, and with that being said, I mean, Zach Bryan, the way that he looks, he shouldn't be doing any of this. I ain't gonna lie. Like, in general, you shouldn't do this, but the way that Zach Bryan looks, like, you would have, like, there's just no way. like this man out here wilding. Like, that's how you know you get famous, and then just completely forget how you look. Like, that man is out here thinking he pulling things off looks. That's insane. Anyways, all right, so that was my, lighthearted take on the situation. But getting back to being serious, Brianna versus Zach Bryan is going to end up, and I don't want to just automatically assume it's going to end up in a lawsuit, but it seems like $12 million, like, goodness, like, that is call for somebody, I'm not going to say being in prison or whatever, but the law is going to have to step in at some point in time, because there's a reason why Zach Bryan's team is offering $12 million. So that's basically why I wanted to cover. The diss track of Zach Bryan is out now. It's not on all DSPs, but if you look it up on YouTube, you'll be able to find it, probably on SoundCloud as well, from other accounts, because of course the main account, Zach Bryan's team, just keeps pulling it down. So if you want to listen to the podcast, obviously I showed that already, as far as the BFFs with Dave Portnoy, Josh Richards, and then Brianna Chickenfry LaPaglia. So there was something else I was wanting to get into, because of course I actually listened to the podcast and I thought it was pretty interesting the way she went about telling the story. You could tell it was clear as day that she was holding back, which she got her main message out there, which was she was physically and mentally abused. But as far as the specifics, I think we got a glimpse on what Zach was doing to Brianna in this clip right here. So this one I'm gonna pull up, and I think it's towards the end of the podcast. Once again, Analytic Dreamz video on Spotify to see the video along with the audio. But she talks about one of the abusive situations right here.
Actually really chill. It's all of like my family and my friends, and we're sitting around the fire, and he just starts doing what he does, like throwing jabs, and I'm like, what the fuck?
And this is one of the stories that she was hesitant on telling, and I think that speaks volumes to the entire episode, because it felt like she was hesitant throughout the entire thing and very vague on a lot of things as far as how abusive he actually was. So I don't want to say what specifically I think happened because, of course, that's a lawsuit in itself. I'm not Tasha K. So I'm going to say allegedly, I think there was more abuse that she is not letting on. She's just covering the basis as far as the overview of it. But anyways, let's get back into her story.
From across the fire, like throwing jabs at my friends and like calling people idiots. And like, I'm like, okay, it's 11:30. I'm going to go to bed before, like I was so excited. It was gonna be my birthday at midnight. We're going to like do the champagne or whatever. I'm like, I got to go to bed before my birthday. Hopefully he will follow me to bed. So I'm like, good night, guys. I love you. Everyone's like, Bree, what the fuck? Why are you going to bed? Like, it's your birthday in 10 minutes. I'm like, I got to go to bed. I'm like, Zach, let's go to bed. He doesn't follow me. I go upstairs. I go to sleep and I wake up like probably an hour and a half later to like screaming. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I go downstairs into the basement of this house and it's like all my girlfriends crying and they're all like in it. So I'm like, what the fuck happened? What's going on? And then I look outside and I have my aunt like trying to control Zach. And there's a recording of all of this that can never be out. Basically, Zach we're all hanging around the fire and I guess he stood.
Key phrase, recording of this that can never come out. And let me replay that just in case y'all forgot or just missed that part. This is why I keep bringing up Cassie versus Diddy.
Recording of all of this that can trying to control Zach. And there's a recording of all of this that can never be out. Basically, Zach we're all hanging around the fire and I guess he stood up at the fire and just starts screaming at my friends. You're not going to be anything. You're a fucking loser. Like just the most horrible shit. Like you're never going to make it. Like you live off of other people. Like just crazy out of nowhere. And I'm like, what the fuck? But when Zach's in this zone, there's no containing it. So my aunt's trying to figure it out, whatever. I bring him up to bed. He smashes glass. Wake up in the morning. I'm like, you have to leave.
All right, so the main thing that I want y'all to know is that she said the key words, recording that can never be out. And once he gets into this mood, there's no stopping him. I think that is why there's $12 million on the table because, of course, when she said there's a recording that can never be out, safe to assume she's the one that doesn't want it to come out because of it putting Zach Bryan in such a negative light and allegedly may be legal ramifications if that footage ever came out. Which is why I am saying that if she wants to continue and wholeheartedly wants to see Zach Bryan basically face consequences for what he did, she should follow the playbook of Cassie because it doesn't seem like she's lying. It seems like she's telling the truth and ultimately it's up to her if she wants to continue that message or not. So as always, abuse in relationships is, I mean, I don't have to tell y'all it's bad, right? I mean, you should already know it's bad. So as far as listening to this episode and podcast, I think it's a great depiction of people, male or female, who go through an abusive relationship and stay, and the reason for why they stay. I think it's a great episode for that because I think a lot of the questions come up like, oh, you stayed, so you was okay with it. I mean, they were dating they started dating in July 2023 and they just ended October 2024. Not the longest relationship. So that argument is out the window. But as far as listening to what she has to say about why she stayed in the abusive relationship, it's very much a teaching moment for a lot of people out there who may be going through the same thing. And this is exactly why she even did this in the first place, as far as taking it public. So there's something else I was wanting to get into. Oh, I had the clip of Zach Bryan talking about, you know, the dress she wore at the Golden Globes. I'm not going to get into that. That's more of the surface level. Let me see. And then the diss track, of course, Smallest Man by Dave Portnoy. Who knows what Warner's going to do after I put this up, right? But anyways, you know, as always, I love to shine the light on things I think deserve it, because if this was somebody you knew, you would want people to treat this with importance as well. So that's why I highlighted it. That's why I'm talking about it the way I am, as far as giving certain advice. And then obviously there's only so much of playing devil's advocate before you just realize that if she wants to continue with her sentiments, ultimately the true way of Zach Bryan facing the consequences for what he did to her is by her providing video evidence. So of course we believe her, but of course the reason why I kept saying throughout this entire segment, the P. Diddy Cassie situation, the Ray Rice situation, people heard about it. They was like, she'll be all right. Then they saw the video and they got up in arms to the point where legal ramifications came because of it. So that's why I say that. So with that being said, click my link tree in my bio. Let me know on one of my social medias. What do you think about Brianna versus Zach Bryan? And as far as the solution, the outcome of this, do you think this will have any effect on Zach Bryan's future projects or even singles as far as making it onto the charts?